Good morning. I have about an hour before a participation quiz. We recently transitioned from pulmonology, which is the study of the lungs, to cardiology, which is the study of the heart. So I'll be going over the anatomy of that this morning. Alright, so I took my quiz, and then there was class, and I am part of a COVID-19 Action Relief Committee. So our goal is to essentially help as many people as possible get the vaccine, as well as discredit any misinformation and answer any questions people may have. So we had an event this morning with a program at a local library where we gave a presentation to some adults regarding COVID, regarding the vaccine, and then answered any questions they may have. And that was a great event because they asked some really good questions and we were able to answer most of them. And overall, I felt that we were able to help them in some way, which is always a good feeling. So now I'm going to get a bit more studying done and also prepare for my clinical case presentation. So essentially on Monday, we're presented with a case of a patient who comes in with certain signs and symptoms, and then we kind of throw together a differential diagnosis, which means the potential possibilities that could be causing this patient's symptoms and problems. And then the following week, we as a group make a presentation regarding the physiology, regarding the anatomy, the histology, any other relevant basic science principles that go behind what's going on with the symptom. We also talk about any labs that we ordered, any imaging, any other tests, and we talk about treatments as well as current research regarding this topic, and we also discuss cultural humility. So for example, if a patient in this case is of a particular demographic, then we discuss tidbits of information that might be good to keep in mind. Things like their occupation, if they work in a particular labor force that might put them at greater risk for exposure to certain chemicals. It's good to keep this in mind and remember that we're not just dealing with the signs and symptoms that a patient might have, but also their entire medical history, their background, who they are as a person, because that's also another relevant part of medicine. That's not just strictly the hard scientific facts. So first we have atrial depolarization. So when atrial depolarization enters the AV node, depolarization slows down. Alright, so I just finished my clinical case presentation. My part was on the basics of an EKG, also known as an electrocardiogram, and that's essentially just a test looking at the electrical conductivity of the heart. And then I also talked about ABGs, which stands for arterial blood gas, and it's a test that looks at the different levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide in a person's blood. So our patient this week had COVID, and obviously there was a lot of info on that because of this past year. And then we got our new case, which we'll be presenting on next week. The chief complaint for this week was lightheadedness, and we later found out that she had an episode of syncope, which essentially means that she fainted. So it's up to us to find out why. And then now I am going to go to a preview of what we'll be doing tomorrow in our clinical skills session, and then I will be talking to someone from Peru to improve my Spanish.
Bueno, he ido a la playa por el cumpleaños de mi chica.
Oh, qué bueno.
De
¿Tu chica es como tu niña o tu novia?
Girlfriend.
Oh, qué bueno.
Lo dije porque normalmente cuando hablo con extranjeros,
Sí.
con personas del país, ellos le dicen así, por eso te dije mi chica, pero normalmente te diría mi enamorada.
Sí, es más fácil cuidar a los nietos que los niños porque no necesitas dar la disciplina. Sí,
No
la disciplina.
No creas, mis padres la corrigen mucho.
I'm pretty tired, as you can tell. I'm laying in bed. I just had a meeting where there was a discussion / Q&A titled Let's Talk Pronouns, and I learned quite a bit. I was also reminded of how quickly my mind can jump to conclusions. For example, if I see someone else by the name of Shirley, I tend to think that they're female, and that's not always going to be the case. And it's always good to remember that regardless of how someone dresses, or how someone talks or behaves, or their name, regardless of the outward expression and appearance, I should always remember that gender does not equate to expression. I just changed my email so that I have my pronouns listed in my signature. So I'm gonna go and get some dinner, and then I'll probably take a break, and then I will probably spend the last couple hours of the night studying and call it a night. After studying, I met up with my group. We are trying to do some research regarding headaches and potential treatment options. So we worked on our proposal that we need to submit for tomorrow. And then afterwards I had lunch, and then I had a clinical skills session. So today was our first time learning how to educate and counsel patients regarding their diagnosis. So since we are in the cardio block as of now, we were talking about high blood pressure or hypertension and kind of advising the standardized patient how they could make some lifestyle changes to improve their blood pressure. And I got feedback that I was easy to talk to, and that the standardized patient liked how I kind of met her where she was at, as opposed to giving her recommendations that wouldn't necessarily fall in line with her lifestyle or be things that she could easily accomplish. And then we also talked about a patient who had an episode of syncope. So yesterday during the clinical case, we were kind of talking about causes of syncope, and today was more so determining what sort of questions we need to ask the patient in order to find out the diagnosis. So I got good feedback and was able to get a better idea of what questions I should ask. Good morning. Quick recap of yesterday. We, as the entire school, had a town hall / meeting with the dean, and he essentially just addressed student concerns and issues. And I thought that was really nice of him, especially because as we're fully online, I've never had the chance to meet him in person. So it's nice to have the opportunity to talk to him. And then I had a meeting regarding resolutions because I am the alternate delegate for my school's chapter of the American Medical Association. And I'll have another meeting for that tonight, so I'll discuss more details about that later. Right now I'm gonna go for a morning jog, and then I will be volunteering. I'm part of a program called Reading Partners, and essentially I got paired up with a student from elementary school because a lot of students currently, especially during the pandemic, have been behind in their literacy levels. So essentially the volunteers get paired up with the student, and we help them improve their reading skills, their comprehension, etc. A quick story. Please tell me the action in the story, okay? So this morning I brushed my teeth to make sure I didn't have bad breath and I wouldn't get cavities. What is the action here? So I just finished meeting with my book club. We're currently reading Kitchen Table Wisdom, which is a novel written by a physician, and it essentially consists of a series of short stories and tales and encounters that she's had with patients. And it discusses a lot more of the humanistic elements of medicine that sometimes isn't as talked about. And one particular tale that stood out to me was she deals with cancer patients a lot, and she essentially has a ritual that she recommends each patient do before a day of surgery. She tells them to find a rock, and then she asks them to invite loved ones, whether that be friends or family or other people that they have in their life, to come and sit in a circle and just talk the day before the surgery or the treatment. And each person goes around and tells the patient a story about some sort of crisis or harrowing event that they went through, and then what sort of quality trait or factor helped them get through that event. So for example, if one of their friends lost their grandma or loved one, they might say humor helped me get through this loss, or someone might say that they had to go through something else and it was determination that got them through that event. And then each person says, I put humility, or I put humor, or I put faith, or I put determination into this pebble or stone that's being passed around. And then the patient can take the pebble with them to their treatment And it's nice because sometimes we forget how many people care about us, even if it's just one person or even if it's just a dog or another pet. You know, it doesn't necessarily matter the number, but the fact that someone cares, sometimes it's nice to have a physical reminder. Even though we know that people care, sometimes it's easy to forget. So now I'm gonna get some lunch, study a bit, and then I have class titled Colloquium, which essentially talks about professional development, lifelong values that physicians should have, things like social determinants of health, racism, public health, how to communicate with patients, things like that. Today we're going to be talking about medical humanities, and we're also going to be having a discussion regarding the recent trial concerning George Floyd's death. We decided to put on a watch, so essentially, from the title, they want to include this in SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Program. Make sure nobody sees you leave. Let over your head, keep your eyes down. Friends, you're up for a run. You'll be flushed when you return. So I finished my meeting with the other members of AMA's Medical Student Section Region 1. We discussed policies and resolutions that we would like both the MSS and the AMA to support. And I walked away from the meeting feeling a little overwhelmed because I'm still not entirely all too familiar with the bureaucratic process, but thankfully everyone on the General Council has been very supportive and educational. They've taught me a lot, and yeah, combined that with colloquium and talking about racism and hearing so many different thoughts has been kind of taxing mental health wise today, but I'm feeling a little more ready to get back to studying after getting some dinner and playing guitar. But yeah, I just feel like there's not enough time in the day. I want to learn more about advocacy and policy making. I want to learn about racism and sexism and public health and different aspects of equity and equality and how to take action on these topics. I want to take care of my health, physical, mental, all of it. I want to foster my relationships. I want to improve my Spanish. I want to make sure I pass all my classes, obviously. And yeah, sometimes it feels like there's just really not enough time in the day to do everything that I want to do.
Allow the infusion to move the dependent portion of the pericardial sac nearest the planned insertion site with a subxyphoid process. Open up and inspect your pericardiocentesis kit.
Hola, ¿puedo entrar?
Sí, pásale.
Hola, me llamo Shirley, soy estudiante de medicina. Un momento, voy a lavar mis manos. ¿Cuál es su nombre y fecha de nacimiento, por favor?
Mi nombre es Norman y mi fecha de nacimiento es el 21 de abril de 1971.
Perfecto. ¿Y cómo prefiere que le llame?
Norma está bien.
No está bien. Bueno, entonces hoy voy a hacerle unas preguntas médicas y un examen física. Antes de empezar, ¿quiere alguien más en el cuarto?
No, así está bien.
Bueno, quiero asegurarle que todo que decimos va a seguir siendo confidencial entre usted, yo y el resto del equipo médico. ¿Está bien si empiezo con las preguntas?
Sí, claro.
Bueno, Norma, ¿qué le trae a la clínica hoy? Ahora voy a resumir lo que dijo. Esta mañana empezó la tos y también empezó dolor en el pecho. El pecho es como un 8 y es muy fuerte, como una navaja. Va y viene y se provoca con la respiración. Tiene dificultad para respirar. As you can tell, I have a billion tabs open because I'm currently studying this diagram in first aid, and you can see that I've annotated some info at the bottom, but it has so much information. I was looking up one thing like S3, S4 heart sounds, and then that just led to looking at JVP, which stands for jugular venous pulse or jugular venous pressure, and then that led to looking at the difference between JVP and the carotid pulse. So yeah, there's just so much. Alright, so I just did a bunch of studying and I feel really good right now because although there's still so much I need to do, I feel that I understand the concepts a little better, so that always is a good feeling. And then now I'm going to prepare for a Spanish OSCE. I am a Spanish tutor at my school. So that means, whereas yesterday I was playing the part of the clinician and practicing my own Spanish, this time I will be the patient and helping my students practice their Spanish. So I'm just reviewing the cases that I've been given. So I will play the role of a patient who is currently experiencing a myocardial infarction, aka a heart attack, as well as a patient who has hypertension, which is elevated blood pressure. And then I will quickly eat some lunch. I'm excited because my dad got some dim sum, so I'll be eating that before my tutoring session begins. Entonces, primero vamos a empezar con los OSCEs y después, si tenemos tiempo, vamos a ver 2 videos de YouTube. Alright, so I just had my research meeting and then now I have a COVID-19 Action Relief Committee meeting, and I don't need to show my video there. I'll just listen in and then speak up when necessary, so I'll be walking outside just so that I'm not sitting in my room all day. So I was a little bummed earlier today because I found out I was rejected from a summer program that I applied to that was essentially a preceptorship / shadowing program that would have allowed me to get more experience with a primarily monolingual Cantonese speaking community. Cantonese is a language that I primarily speak at home. It's a language that my family speaks. So although I am familiar with it and I have no problem holding a conversation, I don't feel comfortable or fluent enough to talk about philosophy and, more importantly, medical terminology. So I would have really appreciated that opportunity. But such is life. I am obviously no stranger to rejection, as evidenced by my other videos on this channel. But, you know, it still always sucks to be rejected. But I feel a little better now. I've decided that I will be spending my time during the summer teaching myself Chinese. Before medical school started, I had been teaching myself Mandarin, mainly how to write. But yeah, I'll be teaching myself Mandarin and Chinese, as well as continue to improve my Spanish. So I will just make the best out of that situation. And I also feel a little bit better because I talked about it with my family and some friends. And I also played some video games. On Friday nights, I tend to stick with activities that allow me to turn off my brain. So if quarantine wasn't a thing, I generally tend to hang out with friends or do some exploring. But since I'm pretty much stuck at home all the time, I just watch TV or a movie, preferably in Spanish, so that I feel a little bit productive. And also it's kind of more fun that way too. I pay more attention. Or I watch YouTube, or I play video games. And yeah, that is my night. I will do some reading before bed and then see you tomorrow. Alright, so that's going to be it for this vlog. For those of you who are curious as to what my weekend plans are, I'm going to be reviewing pulmonology because we learned it a couple weeks ago, and both cardio and pulm will be part of this block's final exam. So I'm going to review that and do some practice questions with some friends so that the information, which is already slipping out of my mind, doesn't do so. And then I'm going to read some research articles and also review some personal statements from 2 subscribers who reached out to ask for input on their drafts. I will also be finishing season 3 of Legend of Korra with my best friend, so I'm super excited for that. And then obviously I'll be editing this video as well as doing some exercise. And then every Sunday I talk to a native Spanish speaker from Mexico so that I can improve my Spanish and he can improve his English. And then I also reached out to someone from China who's a native Mandarin speaker so that I can improve that language as well. She hasn't gotten back to me yet. It's a lot harder to coordinate schedules between the US and China versus the US and Latin America. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this vlog. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you another Sunday. Until then, I surely hope that you will take care of your health.